everybody, and welcome to our Mushin Magazine interview series. Today we have a guest from Canada, Mr. Michele Tibollo, and to introduce our guest I'm having a little bit problem because he's been holding so many different positions in Taekwondo and been involved in Taekwondo for many years. Just generally speaking, Mr. Michele Tibollo has been a legal advisor to General Choi, and also he held many positions like a Vice President of the International Taekwondo Federation and others. Mr. Tibollo, is this your first trip to Korea?
No. Well, thank you for inviting me and for the opportunity to speak a little bit about Taekwondo, the martial art, and a little bit of background. This is actually my fourth trip to Korea. I came here the first time, I believe, around 2002.
Okay, so that's the time where Taekwondo started developing in South Korea.
Yeah, well actually it was the first time that someone had come back to Korea after the departure of General Choi from Korea.
So when you go back with your memory to this first trip, how did you come here, whom did you come with, and what did you do here?
Well, the first trip was a very emotional trip. I came with, back then, Michael Morningstar, who was also very interested in coming back. We spent some time meeting with different people, officials in the WTF. We visited the Kukkiwon in Seoul, and we also visited Jeju Island, the monument, the famous monument that General Choi had erected when he first started teaching Taekwondo to the military. So
let's go back to your beginning of the involvement with General Choi and with Taekwondo. How did it happen? How did you meet General Choi first time, and how did you get involved with him?
Well, it all started actually with my children. My oldest daughter was training in Taekwondo, and I was going and watching her train, and I thought, you know, rather than being outside watching, why don't I get involved and learn Taekwondo myself? So I put on a dobak, and it was a little bit embarrassing because I was, I think, in my 30s back then, or maybe my 30s, and my daughter was 3. So you can imagine.
It's never too late, you know.
It's never too late. And while it was embarrassing because I had all these little kids that were learning the Taekwondo, and of course, you know, they were more flexible. I worked really hard at it, and I worked my way up from white belt to black belt, and that's how it all started. In the process, I met General Choi. There were a lot of issues back then that he was concerned about in the martial art, especially with respect to succession. So I had a lot of discussions with him, I had a lot of meetings with him. We discussed the future of Taekwondo. I assisted him, and as a result of all that, I became the legal advisor to the International Taekwondo Federation. In addition to that, then I started traveling with him, which was a great honor. We got to go to many countries. One of the ones that I enjoyed the best was when we went to Cuba and traveled and spent time there, again, watching him, listening to him, having discussions with him, and you know, have a great deal of respect for him, and great honor for having had the privilege of working with a man like General Choi.
I personally remember the last Congress which took place in Rimini in 2001, and you were there, you know, assisting General Choi, and at that time there was a new decision made that the General Choi would just hold his position for 2 years or something.
Basically, yeah, he would hold the position for 2 years, and then Master Choi at the time, his son, would take over as the leader of the International Taekwondo Federation. Of course, that created a great deal of controversy after the fact. I left the meeting, and by the time we got back to Canada, there was a meeting scrambled, and we all went to Austria and in Vienna, and there was a meeting there that took place, another Congress, and a lot of controversy and turmoil. The decision was overturned. I don't know if it was constitutional or not, but the decision was overturned, and there started to be issues.
So until today, we still actually don't understand and don't know exactly what's happened and which way these things gone. But coming back to your involvement in Taekwondo as a teacher, I know that you've had the chance or experience in teaching a special needs Taekwondo as well. You've instructed people with special needs. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, back in, I guess, at that Congress in Rimini, but let's just to bring it forward a little bit, from the Congress in Rimini, there was one that took place in Vienna. At the one in Vienna, Master Choi continued on with a large group of masters and continued on as the International Taekwondo Federation. I was elected at that time vice president and started spending a great deal of my time trying to understand and develop the concept of the Do of the martial art. As part of that, when I went back to Canada, I started teaching a group of young adults that had issues with respect to sometimes mental or physical disabilities. So
how big was this group?
It varied between 9 and 15 depending on the weeks, because this particular group were considered to be being the highest functional group. So as being the highest functional group, they sometimes had jobs, they sometimes had responsibilities outside of the the week that they were supposed to be in class. So I would teach between, like I said, 9 to 15, and one of the things that I noticed when I was teaching them was that they went from being very they had difficulty sometimes, holding their posture, their balance. They had issues with balance, with their coordination, and I discovered that in teaching them the fundamental patterns, starting off very, very simple, the fundamental movements, and eventually teaching them the first patterns, I started noticing that they started to stand straight. I started to notice that they didn't walk anymore with that gait that they used to have. I would notice that they were more confident with themselves, and I thought to myself, this is what the martial arts should be doing on two levels. One, with people that need this type of assistance to perfect their motor skills, and the other side of it was the interesting part of doing the Do of the martial art in terms of the fundamental principles that we hold true as martial artists or as people that practice Taekwondo. So it was an amazing experience for me, because I'm not a teacher, I'm a lawyer by profession, and to have the opportunity to teach this knowledge that I had learned from the masters and the time that I spent with the General and the time that I spent with Master Choi, to me it was a very a lot of satisfaction for me.
So you mentioned about the Do, and it's a really difficult term, difficult thing to explain, especially to Westerners. I know that you are preparing a set of lectures for our next Tul Tour program next year about this topic. Where do you find the materials? How do you get the inspiration for just talking about it?
Well, I've read the encyclopedias that were originally prepared by General Choi, and there's a lot of information there that's a starting point. A great deal of the philosophy of the martial arts has developed from the martial arts that came to us through China. So a lot of the philosophy, a lot of the thinkers, like Lao Tzu, for instance, is one of the people that I refer to a great deal. What I try to do as well, but more for the Westerners, because in the East they understand the concept, I think, a lot easier, because it's an instilled process from the standpoint of how the children are raised, the respect for seniors, things that in the West we've lost touch with. So I use a series of different stories and different examples that are very North American to express some of the fundamental principles that are the basis of Do.
Actually, I would add to that also the direction of current martial arts or Taekwondo, different type of Taekwondo, towards the sport competition actually takes away this Do issue and just the proper good values which can be passed to the younger generation as example.
Yeah, I actually have used this as an example. I keep on saying that the problem we have in modern society is that we've forgotten to teach our children something as simple as vocation. People have to understand that the whole purpose behind life is not just to make as much money as you possibly can in your life, it's also to service other people. So the greater joy doesn't come from making an extra dollar, it comes from how many people you can help. And I think that when you speak of Do, when you speak of vocation, when you speak of the martial art, while all the exercises and the technique that's developed, studied, and perfected is great from the standpoint of developing the physical strength and the ability to actually force your opponent into submission. However, we forget the fact that martial arts are not meant to be offensive, they're meant to be defensive. So the first thing that you should always do is find ways to resolve things peacefully. And I think that's one of the things as martial artists we should be teaching our children. We should be, especially the masters, because I think there still is a lot of respect for masters. Their students respect them, they bow to them, and they spend countless hours at the dojang. And I think it's important that they impart to them the knowledge of the Do, so that it goes into the rest of it, to their lives and how they live, so that they can incorporate it into their everyday life. And by doing that, I think we'll improve society. We really can build a more peaceful planet and a more peaceful, caring society that can work with other groups and other nations around the world.
Fantastic. Now, let's look, this is your fourth visit here to Korea. When you look the first time at the country here and then this time, can you see any differences between anything?
Well, my first trip here was a very interesting trip because we came as part of the International Taekwondo Federation. We weren't recognized. I went to the Kukkiwon and there was no mention of General Choi. There was no nothing that had anything to do with ITF.
The history is totally different.
Yeah, it was totally different. It was almost as if you were in a different world back then. But to the credit of people like Mr. Rowe, to you especially, with the amount of time that you've spent here, and you've built relationships and developed a strong base in South Korea, which is where the home of Taekwondo should be. It's amazing the difference from then to now, and how the Tul program is developing, how there's a future here for ITF, and I have to say that I'm honored to have been asked to become involved with what's happening in South Korea. So for me, seeing what's happening in South Korea, seeing what you have done, and the invitation to impart this knowledge, and I don't know everything, and I don't think anyone can honestly say that they know everything about anything, but I think what's important is to start that dialogue again, to start getting feedback from people. So anyone that's going to be listening to the discussions that we're having this evening, and that's interested in participating, hopefully we'll be putting things on the internet, and comments are always good as long as they're constructive criticisms. And
also, it's very important to listen to the other people and their input. Some of them are professionals; they know what they're talking about. Yeah. So that's why we can be enriched by this knowledge, their knowledge, and then create something which kind of is appreciated by everybody.
Yeah, and that's the hope. My hope is that I can add some value in that regard because of my background, the work that I've done, and we build a stronger, more vibrant future. Keep strong the legacy of General Choi and all that he did for Taekwondo and the martial art, and at the same time, teach everyone the importance of Do. I can't stress that enough, that people have to understand the significance of living their lives in a way that exemplifies the very nature of what we consider to be the fundamental principles of Taekwondo, whether you're a martial artist or not, because it's the only way our society is going to be able to survive, by having people actually understand what it means to have integrity, what it means to persevere and stay focused on a goal, to achieve that goal, not only for oneself, but also for the community, the country, and of course mankind.
So, Mr. Tibollo is the chairman of the Ambassador Councils of ITF Korea, and maybe in that point I would like to can you share some more information about your future engagement and work in that Ambassador Council area?
Well, I'm working very closely with you and with Mr. O. The intention is that every country will have someone that will act as an ambassador for Taekwondo in that particular country. In some cases it may even be more than one person depending on the size and the significance, the number of people involved. But the key is for us as a group to meet, whether it be at a congress or a conference, and to start explaining what the intention of ITF is from the standpoint of building the community and reinforcing it, not from the standpoint of trying to take control of what's happening in each country, but to provide a highway, if we can call it that, for the sharing of information. So I'm really looking forward. I think it's going to be very challenging, but thanks to my work with ITF and my practice as a lawyer, I've been now to 54 countries. I've traveled around the world 3 times, probably a third of the number of times you've done it. But I still like to travel, I still have that energy, and I hope to dedicate some volunteer time to helping to, again, reunify Taekwondo and bring as many people back to Korea as possible so that they see that this is where Taekwondo belongs. The Tul programs that I've seen are incredible. I've experienced on this trip some of the locations where the actual teaching takes place, and I have to say that if you want to truly see Rome, you can read about it in a book, but until you see the Colosseum with your own eyes, or see one of the great works of art in the Vatican or where it happens to be, you can never understand Italy. And likewise with Taekwondo. If you don't come here and visit some of the tombs of the people that were named, that their names are used for the patterns, you can never understand and never truly taste the real Taekwondo. So it's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to be working with all of you and bringing about these Tul tours. And hopefully I can add another dimension that will also be something they can take home with them when they come on one of these Tul tours and share with their students, and again, build a stronger community.
That's right. Thank you very much for this kind word, but there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges here. And Mr. Tibollo will be a guest lecturer in the first, actually, pioneering Tul Tour Masters, which will take place in April next year, with a series of lectures on Do. Additionally, at that time, we have a large celebration of the 60th anniversary of the International Taekwondo Federation in Jeju Island. So stay tuned on that, because you may wish to come and celebrate together with us.